So that's something we ought to use in our broadcast.
Exactly.
That's a good question you're asking. I can remember a few years ago, Philip Forsberg had 2 hat tricks in the same week. But that's been a minute since that happened. I'm trying to remember, and it doesn't pop into my head. Like, those were the first 2 hat tricks of the season this year.
But they don't
I'm
come around
hard-pressed
very
to
often.
remember a hat trick anybody had last year. I don't know that anybody had one last year.
I don't
Not sure.
remember. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
is a safe assumption.
Yeah,
that it's
but
been a
hey,
while.
I take it. The Nashville Predators played. They played a good game. You know, it wasn't clean as they wanted it probably, but they did the things necessary to, win the game against the Buffalo Sabres, who had played the night before. So you got to take advantage of that when you can. And Willy mentioned that their starting goalie wasn't in the net, so they were going with their backup goalie. But still, the Predators went out and took care of business. And, I look at this past game, and I think this was a I don't want to say statement game, and just bear with me for a second. And I did explain to y'all right before we got on air. It was a big game or statement game for me because all that's going on this week. They traded away Trenton yesterday. Other guys are still trying to figure out, are we going to get traded? Are we going to be here? So all of this stuff swirling around this team, and then they don't play as well the night, 2 nights ago. Then they come back to last night, and they elevate their game, and they take advantage of a team, rightfully so, a team that just played the night before. And that third period was lights out. Philip Forsberg had a great game, his hat trick. So
He was awesome.
To me, I think this game, it really showed their mettle because, when a lot of stuff, being a former athlete, and when stuff like that is swirling around the locker room, trade deadline comes upon you, and you still stay focused on what you're doing, even though one of your buddies just got traded, that says a lot. That says a lot for that organization, for this year's team, and for Coach Bruno, that he kept everything together because they need every game moving forward.
I think that's a good point. It is not easy to be on your best game when you're a day away from the trade deadline. It's you're getting a mixed bag sometimes. Yakov Trenin has been a Predator since he was 18 years old. And he's been on the team as a regular now for 3 or 4 straight years.
Yeah.
So not having him around is that was definitely noteworthy, right? He's a extremely popular guy behind the scenes, real quiet, but man, the nicest guy that you can find. So it's a bummer that he's going to Colorado of all. Colorado, come on. And he might do very well. Colorado has certainly reshaped their weakness, and they're going out with a new formula because what's the rap on Colorado? They've got the guys at the top that are mega stars, but behind them, they can be exploited. 2 years ago, they had a better supporting cast, and they just railroaded the whole league in the playoffs, right? Starting with the Predators in the first round. It was just no contest, and it was really no contest any time during the playoff run. Last year was different. They didn't have quite the secondary group that they wanted, and this year I think they looked at their secondary group and they were like, we need to upgrade there. And they have. They've added 3 or 4 forwards, and it looks like they, on paper, have upgraded. That's what they're hoping, and Trenton is a part of that. So Nashville trades Trenton within the division. And I'm curious if Trenton becomes a free agent in the summer or if he stays with Colorado. I can see Colorado saying, okay, thanks, Yakov. We rented you, and now you can move on and test the market. It's worth asking Barry Trotz when all the dust settles here if they kind of left it there with Trenton and say, okay, if you hit the market again, we might be interested in bringing you back. That wouldn't be the first time that's ever happened, but that's now a question for the summer and not for right now. But all that being said, to take care of Buffalo last night was important because, as we said, when you lose first time in a long time, it's like, okay, how's your confidence? But to get back, it's like a closer that's on a roll, save 10, 15 games in a row, then you blow one. what's that next outing look like? So I thought that was important to reestablish the confidence and the groove that they've been in. And they did take advantage of a Buffalo team that they played on the right night. Back half of back-to-backs, backup goalie in. They had an injury the night before to one of their key scorers, Tage Thompson. They were putting in a Bowen Byram for the first time. They just traded one of their key players for a very talented defenseman in Byram, who scored the first time he touched the puck for his new team. That was pretty fun for Sabres fans. But all that being said, that was a team you needed to beat last night. Even though the Sabres, I think in another year or two, that's going to be a really, really interesting team to watch. Like I keep waiting for the light to go on. It hasn't, but they're still so young. That's going to be an interesting team to watch over the next few years. But had to beat them while you can, and they did last night.
And it's not even just a team that you should have beaten. It was also points that you needed.
Oh,
a game that you needed to win. Points that you needed in the standings. So now you leapfrog, the Nashville Predators have leapfrogged Vegas for that first wild card spot.
Now
the
think
Preds
about
sitting
that
with
for a
75 points and Vegas with 73. I mean, we've viewed Vegas, rightfully so, as the big bad Golden Knights, the reigning Stanley Cup champions. And now you're sitting pretty. And it's not like you've pulled away from Vegas, but you're starting to pull away from Minnesota and St. Louis and those other bubble teams. That it's looking like it's going to be you and Vegas in the wild card, at least where it stands right now. I understand a lot of games left to be played, a lot of points left to be gotten, but right now you're sitting in a really comfortable spot. And it's also it's the getting the points, and it's also the getting back on track. I think through that 8-game winning streak, we started to see the identity of this Predators team and how they are going to make the playoffs, to play in the playoffs, make a first round interesting. Heck, even get out of the first round of the playoffs. I mean, the way that they were playing, I think anything was on the table. So you didn't see that kind of fire, tenacity, brand of hockey, identity of hockey against Montreal. And while I don't think that last night's game was even remotely close to the best brand of hockey that the Predators could play, they had their ups, they had their downs, but ultimately you found a way to win, and that's the brand and the identity of this Nashville Predators team. And that it doesn't have to always be the Philip Forsbergs, the Ryan O'Reillys, the Gus Nyquists, and UC Saros playing his absolute butt off. It's scoring up and down the roster. Last night, it just so happened to be Philip Forsberg's night.
And that first line has now played two just tremendous games back-to-back, getting back to their A game. Because during the 8-game winning streak, it was noteworthy that they played well, but they weren't carrying the team. It was really a collective thing that was getting them the offense. But that's now, in 9 of the 10 games, they've scored at least 4. Now, that's hard to do, even if you're the best scoring team in the league. But so they're getting offense. And last night, it was back to they got it from the top line, a dominant night from those guys. But you made a good point about just where they are right now. There's 18 games left. They have 75 points. Crispy was on with us last night. It was fun. Hal Gill, who is a Boston Bruin alum, they're celebrating their 100th year. So they're every so often they're getting a bunch of alumni back up there and celebrating former Bruins. So Hal was up there last night in enemy territory.
He didn't pull a Mike Vrabel, did he?
I don't think so.
It's not like this everywhere.
We'll have to find out. Was he mic'd up anywhere?
Exactly.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Saying, "Hey, Bruins fans, don't take this for granted."
I'm going to ask Hal. I'm going to ask Hal when I see him in Columbus later tonight. That's a good question. But Crispy made a good point last night. He was awesome.
It was good to have Crispy.
Oh
back
man,
on the
he was great. He was great. He is forever our inspiration. But he said, when you're in this position in the Predators, don't look behind you, right? Keep shooting for the team in front of you, and that is going to, keep you in the right mindset. And just passing Vegas, I mean, holy cow.
That was huge.
I don't know if that's going to remain the case because Vegas is going to figure it out. Right now, they're in a total funk. I watched the end of their game last night. Their announcers are looking around going, what's going on? They haven't even led. But this happens to some teams, and they're mixing in their new guys. They're loading up. They brought in 3 impact type of guys, and we'll see where it goes. I feel like they're going to get on a hot streak. They're going to be in the playoffs, but just the fact that Nashville could catch the defending champions like that's saying something about how well the Predators have played. But I think that's what you got to do. Stay hungry. See if there's another team you could catch. Hey, why not?
I'm looking at the last 10 games, and obviously we know about the first line of Forsberg, Nyquist, O'Reilly, those guys. We know about the first line, and I'm just looking at what they have produced over the last 10 games. You're talking about 5 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals, but then you look at that second unit. 2 goals, 2 goals, 4 goals. They are getting a third unit, 1, 3, 2. They are getting contribution down the line. This is no longer, even though the first line is is that line, is your lead dog. But it seems like within this last 10 games or month and a half, everybody has picked up the slack. Yeah. And with a team like this, you got to have a collection of guys going out there, and we've said it before, pulling the rope the same direction. Everybody's pulling the rope the same direction. Everybody's doing the things that they need to do on the ice, because when you're doing the things that you're supposed to do, good things are gonna happen for you. When you're playing within the system, good things are gonna happen. When you start to get outside a system, that's when you have the mistakes. That's when you have, the turnovers and everything else. But it seems like the last month, somewhere around there, this team, and I'm not just talking about the first unit, everybody is contributing.
The system that Andrew Brunette is putting out there, I think, is giving them a formula each night that has been successful. In other words, they're getting more offense than they're giving up. Mm-hmm. That's what, to me, is the biggest part of the story, and that's where Andrew Brunette probably deserves some consideration for the Jack Adams, is because you look at this collection of players, and when you listen to all the trade talk nationally and you start hearing about teams being mentioned, people from the outside look at the Predators and they look at the names on that list and they're like, oh, man, they don't really have a lot of sexy guys outside of Forsberg and Yossi. And they're like, how are they doing it? They need more scoring. And that's probably true. They need more finishers, but they're getting every night their share of offense, and they're not giving up a ton on the other end. They're not giving up 40 shots like they were last year. Right. So I think that's the system that's elevating the group, and now it's up to and recently those guys beyond the first line are chipping in and scoring more, and that's what's intriguing is with this Beauvillier pickup. And I don't know if they got anything up their sleeve today, or maybe there's somebody from Milwaukee that can move the needle just a little bit. But if they can just convert a little bit more of their chances, it's starting to happen, and they still get the top-level goaltending that they've just started to get in the last 10 games, I think there's even another level that they could get to. And I'm not saying they're going to be favored in the first round. They're going to be a substantial underdog in the first round if they make it, if they continue on this. But I think the gap's a little smaller when you look at the system than you might imagine on paper.
As far as Andrew Brunette for the Jack Adams, I don't think that's crazy at all, nor do I think that's out of the realm of possibility. I was watching a Sportsnet short on YouTube, and it was kind of going through rapid fire some contenders that they would see for the Jack Adams. And they listed like 9 or 10 coaches, and Andrew Brunette wasn't even on the list. Now, it could have been when the Predators were maybe in the midst of their hot streak, because I think this came out about a week ago. So the Predators were in the middle of the hot streak, of the win streak. But I think that now the Predators had won those 8. They now find themselves in a playoff position. Looking back on that, I don't know how you could name 9 or 10 coaches in consideration for the Jack Adams and Andrew Brunette not be one of them, considering the team that he inherited, considering the pivot of this organization, and considering the pivot of the team at this point in the season. I think that he absolutely should at least be in consideration. But want to get your thoughts on everything Nashville Predators yesterday. The moves, the acquisitions, the trades. Yakov Trenin, of course, sent to Colorado in exchange for a third-round pick. Steve is on the line with a thought on Yakov Trenin. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What's up, Steve?
Hey, I really enjoy the show. I wanted to ask, why do you think that was a good move by getting rid of Trenin, and who is going to take his place? Are we going to promote somebody from Milwaukee to his place? And I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Steve.
I think it's a good question because it's not easy to part with a veteran guy that the one thing you say about Trenton, you know what you're getting. Yeah. Right? He's big, he's strong, he's going to hit, he's not going to score 25 goals, but he's going to give you 10 to 15 goals every year. He's going to penalty kill. If he needs to fight, he'll fight. So that's not an easy piece to give up. But let's look at the net result. You trade only a 5th-round pick to get Beauvillier to try to give you a little more scoring touch, which is a need on the team. You get a 3rd-round pick for trading Trennan. So you have an extra 3rd and one less 5th in this huge pile of draft picks that you've got in the coming years. So you gained a little more draft capital on the switch. And I do think that they feel like they've got some guys that could fill Trennan's role. One would be the guy they picked up on waivers, Jared Anderson-Dolan. They like him as a bottom 6. He's not quite as big as Trennan. He's got a little more skill than Trennan, but he's a penalty killer, so he's one option. Also, I keep hearing a lot of stuff about Zach LaRue, he's got that sandpaper. He is a guy that will annoy the other team. Like, he's been suspended a few times. He will stick his nose in there. He will take penalties, but he will draw penalties. But I think they really like his makeup. I hear he could be a guy that could get a shot at some point, so that's an option. But I think it's a little easier to replace what Trennan brings than to find somebody who can score. So the net result, I think, is a worthy gamble to see if you can upgrade there. And they probably were not comfortable with what the terms were going to be for Trennan's next contract, so he's a free agent at the end of the year.
That, I think, is really the biggest thing for me, and why the Predators ultimately made that decision. Well, Barry Trotz might tell us. He will join Stillman and Company later on this afternoon after the trade deadline. But to me, it's a business move. I mean, Barry Trotz, even though they want to make the playoffs, Barry Trotz still is a businessman. He still has business decisions to make. And he said, look, if I need to sell, I'll sell. If I need to buy, I'll buy. And so if Yakov Trenin and his people and Barry Trotz just couldn't come to an agreement of his value for this team and what his people viewed his value as, then are we going to lose you for nothing? When we can maybe find other guys within our system, or maybe it's an Anthony Beauvillier plug and play, and that's kind of your pseudo Yakov Trenin for the rest of the season. If we can find that at a price that we like, we'll take that over overpaying for a Yakov Trenin that I don't know how much Barry Trotz views Yakov Trenin as a foundational piece moving forward in this new Andrew Brunette system.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So we'll see if they've got anything else going today. I think the central guy will be Carrier to see if they can finalize what the next deal would be for him. Because if they can't, then I do think they would have to consider what's the last best offer they receive for him and weigh that. But I do think it would be tougher to trade Carrier in the short term than it is going to be trying to replace what Trenin gives you.
Carrier is the interesting one today.
Yeah.
Carrier, Lankinen, Barry.
Lankinen's another one, yeah.
As we go throughout the next few hours, the NHL trade deadline is at 2 p.m. today. So those will be interesting names to watch. And, of course, we'll keep you updated with any moves that the Nashville Predators make from now until the NHL trade deadline at 2 p.m. Central. But Chris Mason will join us coming up next. What he has seen from the Nashville Predators, maybe the player perspective of what the trade deadline means, of what those players might be feeling right now. We'll get into that coming up next. Chris Mason will join us. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
Kevin Ingram, and we
Shot broken up in front, and what a slick backhand try right in front of Chris Mason. And now the quick pass down the middle, breaking in, and a backhand stop by Chris Mason. And Marlowe with a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1, and what a stop by Mason. Chichu right in front, and what a stop on Ekman by Mason.
And goal, number 3, Chris Mason.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase for broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. The Predators take down the Buffalo Sabres 4-2 last night, and in their last 10 games, possible 20 points, the Predators have gotten 19, which you would take any day of the week. Joining us now is Chris Mason. Mace, appreciate you for joining us as always. I do want to get into trade deadline, the moves that the Predators already have made, the moves that the Predators can make over the next few hours until the trade deadline at 2 p.m. But first, kind of want to look at the on-ice performance that we've seen over the last few games against Montreal. It just wasn't the same kind of fire. It wasn't the same kind of tenacity, kind of a sloppy performance against Montreal. But Predators come back, beat the Buffalo Sabres last night. This brand of hockey that the Predators have been playing, what have you made of it, and how encouraged does it make you for the Predators to not just make the postseason, but to make things interesting in the postseason?
Yeah, I definitely think they have one of those teams that can make things interesting. You're going to have games like that against Montreal. It's tough sometimes to, completely get up the same way, and you got the trade deadline, hanging over their heads and all this kind of stuff. It's not easy. And as much as everybody says, how can you let the Montreal Canadiens, a team, look at where they are in the standings? It's just we all know this. If you follow any sports, if the team isn't ready to play 100% and do all the little things they would do against the Colorado Avalanche or an opponent of that caliber, you're not going to win, or you're playing with fire. You might get away with it a couple times, but that's human nature. But the way that they got back, on the saddle, and they played well against Buffalo, and able to close it out in the third period again. Something they didn't really have a really strong third period against the Canadiens, but they were able to get a point, which is good. And I was talking to the guys from Buffalo, and, Rob Ray was saying, he's like, man, you guys play hard. Your team they got that grit. He's like, we've got good young talent, but we don't have any grit. We don't have that. And it seems like, you guys, you've got a good balance of everything, and your top guys are scoring. So, when you hear the outside view of what people think of your team, I think that helps too, because, we get so entrenched, you get so kind of tunnel vision on your team, and you have your opinion. It's nice to hear what outside experts think as well. And that was, a compliment to the team and the way that they play. And I think, those intangibles and the things that the Predators really excel in, that physical play, the ability to, possess the puck to create offense. They might not have the most, high-flying, high-octane, superstar-powered offense, but they get chances. They work hard. Their top guys are scoring again, as Phil did last night. And, they're getting some the back end. The defensemen are getting points. It's just a really good thing. And then Saros, I mean, that's a tough draw. If you're the 1 seed or the 2 seed or whatever it is, and you pull the Predators, like, we're gonna have to earn this one. That's exactly what they want. They want to be that team that they are right now, where really nobody wants to play.
Chris Mason is with us. The Predators made a couple moves yesterday, trading a 5th-round pick to Chicago for Anthony Beauvillier, trading away Yakov Trenin to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. What do you make of those moves, Mace?
It's tough. It's the old business side of it. If you don't want to. Barry's been in a tough position here, because I'm sure they had Plan A. 3 weeks ago before this streak, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there goes Plan A. We can't do that anymore. You kind of have to reassess where you are. He's been a man of his word. He said the players are going to dictate what I do and how I go about doing it. If it had continued to spiral downward after that Dallas game, well, I'm guessing we'd have seen a lot more names moved already. And today, as well. But they showed him what they wanted to do by the way that they played and responded. So it's difficult. You still don't want to just hold on to everything and not take an opportunity to get some assets with, maybe guys you don't feel that you can sign, or you have an opportunity, you get a phone call and you're like, wow, that's a decent prospect and a third round draft pick for Trenton. We love Yakov Trenton here, but this is probably the best move for the team. We've got guys who can, hopefully step up and fill his role, and still make a good run at the playoffs here. So it's tough. It's really tough, and it's everybody understands that. And I know from being in this side of it, it stings at first, and the Predators went through that last year, and they went on their great run. But life goes on. Trenton's going to a team, and he's got a chance to win a Stanley Cup. The guys here, Mark Jankowski, I look at last night, had an opportunity to play a lot more ice time. Look what he does. He's awesome on the penalty kill, power play point. And he probably had one of his best games all season. He stepped up kind of in that role, I think, taking on a little more responsibility. So it's a life in sports, and, life goes on. But at first it kind of stings because, Trenton was well-loved and respected by the fans and teammates, no question about that.
So some interesting stuff here has gone down. Caroline, you just saw it. I'm going to look up some numbers on this guy, but it looks like the Predators have made another move.
The Predators have made yet another move. So glad that we have you on, D-Mase, for many reasons.
Breaking it right now?
A little breaking news. The Preds have reportedly acquired Jason Zucker, most recently with the Arizona Coyotes. 32 years old, forward, 25 points on the season, 9 goals, 16 assists. D-Mase, what do we know about him? What do we make of the move?
Well, what did we give up for him?
That's the question.
It says acquired. So I don't know if that was a waiver move.
No, it would be a trade.
Or it was
for
a trade.
Sure.
All I'm seeing is acquired.
Yeah, I think that. So
this is a proven entity. This is a guy this is an ad, and this is somebody who's, as we mentioned, the Predators have done well with the salary cap issues, and they're able to add some of these pieces that won't, have long-term ramifications. And he plays the game. That's why Arizona brought him in, is to work with their younger players and have that good balance. A similar thing to what the Predators did in the offseason is you bring in character people and character players to kind of help, show your young prospects and your young players, how to do it right in the NHL, and, to get better and to just build really good habits. And, he's a player that's been, a really good player in this league for a lot of years, and he's going to come in, and he's a guy that can score too. He's scored in his past. He's obviously getting a little bit older, but, I think it's a nice piece. If one of the things that I think the Predators were looking for, the entire season until recently was a little more scoring, and he's a guy that can provide that. He's a good 200-foot player, which means that he'll play hard on the defensive side of things. And again, another guy that's got a lot of experience, in these stretches of hockey coming up. So
let's give you a little background. Mm-hmm. And I learned this over the years. He spent a lot of time in Minnesota. When you look at his name, it's spelled Zucker. They always had a little different pronunciation. It's more like Zook, like hook.
Zucker.
Zucker. 32 years old. Last year, 27 goals for the Penguins. This year, as you just mentioned, Caroline, he's not having any kind of great shakes kind of season. 9 goals, 16 assists. But as May said, he's had a lot of production over the years. Now, he spent 4 years in Pittsburgh and had a lot of injuries during that. He kind of fell off the grid, in my mind. He missed over half the season for 3 straight years. So injuries have really derailed him for the middle portion of his year. But back in his days for Minnesota, he was a consistent 45. In fact, had one great year in 2017-18 where he had 64 points, 33 goals, and 31 assists. So he's had some flashes. Mm-hmm. He's on an expiring contract, so I imagine the price wasn't that big to give up. But Mace, I'm kind of in my mind trying to figure out where he fits. Would he give you a little more offense and some of the same grit that Trenton gives you, even though he's not the same kind of body, right? He's not a big, strong guy. He's 5'11", but he's a veteran guy.
Well, I think he's one of those guys that could fall maybe more into the puck possession type of play. He plays hard. He's not as overly powerful physically as Trenton is. But he can do a lot of good things. And I always look at guys too in their situations. You go from Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden you're in Arizona. You take a deal, and as it goes on there, it's a tough place to play. I mean, that gets old playing in that little rink, all the time. I know going there a few times as a visitor, you're like, okay, it's worn off a little bit. You need an NHL building. I can't imagine playing there every single day. So this is going to be something that I think is going to really, rejuvenate him. Coming to Nashville, awesome city, great organization. You're going on a fun run, playing, coming into a team that's got really good chemistry, a good locker room. The city's just buzzing. It's an ideal situation, I think, for someone that's playing in a situation like that and coming here, and he's probably going to get that second life. And as you mentioned, he's got more offensive upside than Trennan, and he understands the game too. So whatever role he's put in, he's played them all. He's going to be effective, and something that I think could thrive from Bruno's system, as we've seen from a lot of guys this season having their career years as older players. So we'll have to see. That's the unknown intangible, is the chemistry and how you fit into the situation.
It's really interesting how much I'm surprised that they're adding as much as they are here, but
they're buyers.
They have become buyers. And Andrew Brunette, I think it's also worth mentioning, was with Minnesota for a long time, kind of behind the scenes, sometimes as an assistant coach, sometimes in the front office. So he would know the person, Jason Zucker, very, very well. So I think that's noteworthy. So he probably was like, yeah, I can see how he would fit in the Bruno system, which is different, right? It's progressive, and it's been really effective. So you don't want to mess with how guys fit into the system you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you look at both guys, they're adding without giving up much. They're not giving up much to make these additions. And I don't mind that. They've got so many draft picks over the next couple of years. And the other thing that you made a great point, Willie, there's history with both of these guys. Beauvillier, Trotz had Beauvillier with the Islanders. He knows him well. He's not coming here if Trotz doesn't know his character and what kind of person he is and player. And same thing with Zucker. It's guys you're familiar with. It's not going to be a wild card. Well, I hope this guy. I see him play. He's a good player. I think he can fit in. These guys, have history with these players, so that's big too when you're coming in, because they, at the deadline, you're always very cognizant of bringing in the right people, and you don't want to, mess up the feeling and the swagger and that whole aura around your team. So very calculated on the personnel you bring in.
Considering everything that has happened, D-Mase, in regards to the Predator season thus far, obviously we know what they have done over the course of the last month here. Should Coach Bruno be considered for the Jack Adams Award? I know they're not in first place. I know they're not one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league, but what he has done with the roster that is missing some pieces, a bunch of young guys, but he's got these guys playing at a level that I don't think nobody, nationally thought they were going to play at least not this year.
Yeah, I love that point, D-Mase, because I honestly think that in the NHL, I think that award is such a joke, really, because you look at some of these teams and guys that win it, and I'm not saying the coaches that win it aren't deserving. Mm-hmm. Last year, Montgomery, I think, wins it. Boston's got one of the most historic seasons in the NHL, and, things like that. But sometimes it's like I have no coaching experience. D-Mase, you and I could go and we could coach. Us 4-5 could go coach. The Edmonton Oilers, and Connor McDavid's going to have 1,000 points. And some of these teams, it's the personnel that you have, and give these guys credit, because there is a line of good teams and excellent and all these types of things. But I think when you have a roster that's constructed the way the Predators are, or the way that some of these other teams, because look around the league, and there's a lot of teams with equal experience and inexperience as the Predators that are the bottom feeders of the league right now. So I think what Andrew Brunette has come in and done, and I think the additions that Barry Trotz made in the off season, I wish they would consider things like that more. I wish they would really do a deeper dive and said, okay, well, it's between, Vancouver, Tocchet will probably win it this year. He's done a great job. It's been a great turnaround. But just to pick the 4 top teams and say, okay, it's one of these guys. Like, that's just not the way that I think that true essence of the best coach in the NHL is. So I think he should get consideration and be one of the guys in the conversation for sure. But unfortunately, I just don't think it will with how they pick that award.
Now, obviously, we have maybe 2-3 hours left before the trade deadline is up. So obviously, there could be more moves made. But one move I am sort of not concerned about, but that I am interested to see whether it happens or not is Lankinen. Because you see where the Predators are at and the moves that they're making and how they're playing so well. They're going to need a veteran backup goalie. I know Askarov, he may be the next, great goalie in NHL, but in case something happens to UC, do you see a move possibly being made for Lankinen?
I mean, I'm willing to bet that Barry Trotz has had a lot of calls on Kevin Lankinen because there's a lot of teams, that need just exactly what you're talking about. They need a veteran guy that they could trust if something happens to their 1A or their top guy. The Predators went through that when they had David Riddick and Connor Ingram a few years ago. Obviously, Connor Ingram's, turned that around and turned it into a nice career, but he wasn't quite ready. He had the one really good game, and you just put yourself in a really tough spot with one injury. And I think if the Predators are adding right now, which, they've added a couple pieces, and you want to get into the playoffs and you want to make some noise and you want to maybe try to upset somebody and then have a little fun in the playoffs, then you need that security because, one thing happens. And as you mentioned, Askarov's a great goaltender in the minors. He's played 2 NHL hockey games. And no offense to him, it's a whole different ball game, a whole different level of pressure and weight, and you don't want to put your young goaltender in a situation where, it could crush him, something like that. I'm not saying it would. I know he's mentally strong, and I know he's got elite abilities, and he's going to have a great NHL career, but you don't want to put a young player in that position where, hey, you're going to set him back because, he failed, in a certain situation, or if it's in the playoffs and something happens and you got your young goaltender. If that's what happens because of injury and it's just so be it and you have to do it that way, then that's fine. But I think if you can avoid doing that, I think that's the best thing for the player long-term and the team.
D-Mase, appreciate you for stopping by. Safe travels to Columbus, and we'll chat next week.
Thank you, guys. What team are we going to coach next year? We got to get in the Jack Adams award here.
Let's coach the best team, whatever that team
there
is.
There we go. Then we'll be up for it.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate you. All right, coming up next, we'll get into your thoughts and your reaction. Again, the new news, the Predators have acquired Jason Zucker from the Arizona Coyotes. What they traded, we don't know. I have not a reporter, the reporter on it. He's doing some investigative journalism for us. We'll get reaction on that, and our full reaction on that as well. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits this Sunday for coverage of the Shriners Children's 500 in Arizona. Coverage will begin at 1:30 p.m. with the race starting at 2:30 p.m. Coverage also available on the 93.3 Classic Hits app and at 933classichits.com. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, stay tuned into 94.9 The Fan today as Vanderbilt baseball takes on Illinois State at Hawkins Field with pregame at 4:15 and first pitch at 4:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. A little bit of new news on this NHL trade deadline day. The Predators have made yet another addition. Jason Zucker from the Arizona Coyotes. No, we do not know, unless it has been reported and I missed it at the break, but we have not heard what's
the compensation?
The compensation is. No, for me to truly give my full opinion of the trade, I have to know what the Predators gave up to get him. If it was a 5th round pick, fine. Like that, fine. Don't care. Take the 5th round pick. If you feel like this gives you a little bit of oomph to get you over the edge and to make you even more competitive to get in and to make the playoffs competitive, then fine. I have no problem with that. If we're trading 2nd round picks, now that I have a problem with. But I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like Barry Trotz wants to go bargain shopping. I feel like Barry Trotz has no problem sending 5th and 6th round picks out the door for 2 players that can provide you depth scoring that are both UFAs next season. That if they give you something, great. If they don't, no harm, no foul. You set him free at the end of the season. You gave up late round picks to get him. So not quite sure what the compensation is for Jason Zucker, but the Predators just acquiring him is just announced.
Willie, bring up the stat you brought up because I know a lot of people on our text line are upset.
Sorry, excuse me. Per Twitter, 6th round pick.
6th round pick. Okay.
6th round pick.
6th round pick.
See, now that's worth a flyer.
Exactly.
Send it. Don't care.
Because you can try him. You can try him for 10 games, and if it doesn't work, then you don't remember the rosters expand. It's not like you can't have the depth. You can sit him on the bench basically. You can not dress him and bring a guy up from Milwaukee if a guy is on fire down there, and you're like, I got to get this guy up there. So. It's a flexibility.
But you did bring up the stat of the odd man rushes, and it's odd that the guy that they bring in, that's one of his strong suits.
Yes. I'm looking at a guy that I really like in terms of analytics, a profile of a player. He goes by Jay Fresh. I forget the guy's real name, but he's got a good, and Nick was able to pull this around.
Or,
Jay Fresh Hockey is his handle on Twitter. But he says that Zucker is a middle 6 offensive winger, has definitely missed Malkin. Now, he played with Pittsburgh last year. With Evgeny Malkin, he scored 27 goals last year. He was seeing a lot less ice in Arizona, and Arizona is obviously a very different team than the Penguins, but still should have something to bring to Nashville's transition game. Now, the transition game is interesting. I don't know how many Predator fans are aware of this, because I wasn't until about a week ago. But we had a discussion one night the win streak was going on during the road trip, and I was asking Hal Gill and Chris Mason. I was like, does it seem like they're getting a lot of odd man rushes that don't turn into anything that they should? Like, they should be getting more goals off of the odd man rushes. So I looked up the numbers on Sport Logic. They get 5.8 odd man rushes per game at even strength. That ranks 6th in the NHL. And when you think about the Predators, you don't think of a run and gun, up and down, fast break kind of game. But they're generating odd man rushes. But the reason we probably don't realize it is because it's not turning into as many goals as it could. And so if Zucker is a transition type of player, and I would imagine they think Beauvillier could help in that area, if they can create the same amount of odd man rushes and it's those guys, maybe that just moves you up a little bit and you start converting another couple percent of the odd man rushes into goals. That's, again, where you can make an upgrade without mortgaging anything in the future. A 6th round pick is nothing for a guy who scored 27 goals last year.
Well, you talk about finishers, and it seems like adding these 2 guys, when we're talking about the odd man rush, these are guys that you believe are finishers. It's like the fast break.
They're better finishers than the guys they're replacing. Like, Trenton is not a finisher, right? He's not. And look, they are doing an amazing job. But Kiefer Sherwood and Michael McCarron, Cole Smith, they're not finishers, right? So you're getting what you're getting from them. You're getting the grit. You're getting the physicality. You're getting the hustle. You're getting the heart. But they're not. When they score, it's great. but they can create all kinds of odd man rushes, but they're not going to score at a high rate. So you need a couple other guys sprinkled in your lineup. Like Tommy Novak can get you going on a odd man rush, but he's a little bit more of a passer. And so what if you put a winger on there that is a little bit better shooter, finisher? In theory, that's where you upgrade your team just a little bit at a very small price.
And the other point that you brought up at the break, Willie, is that Barry Trotz making these moves and buying, that tells me a couple of things. One, the guys in Milwaukee just aren't ready yet. Two, maybe the guys in Milwaukee, maybe Barry Trotz wants to give those guys in Milwaukee a chance, but he's buying low-cost insurance just in case some of those young guys in Milwaukee get up here and they prove they're just not ready yet, not quite for this stage, but that's okay because we have a couple of insurance pieces if and when they prove that they're not ready for this opportunity right now.
I think that low-cost insurance is a great term for these because the other part of it is you have no obligation to them next year. If each of them had another year at their contract, because let's be honest, they both are overpaid for their production this year, Beauvillier and Zucker. But the beauty of it is the Predators have the cap space. They're free agents at the end of the year. If you catch lightning in a bottle, then you might say, well, let's see what it would take to keep you around if it happens. If not, throw them back into the free agent pool and they move on.
It really feels so no harm, no foul. Like one texter texts in, Lee texts in, says, no issue with the Zucker deal. Sending a 6th-round pick on a rental is fine. The Preds still have 7 picks in the top 100 of the 2024 draft. I didn't fact check that, but if that's true, that's insane. Says Trotz smartly bargain shopping with little risk. That's what it is. Yeah. It's low risk with a potential for a reward. And I don't want to say
like Macklemore. You go into the bargain bin, you go to the thrift shop.
There you go.
Hey,
bring a $20 bill. You might come out of there with something good.
You might have a mink coat.
Hey.
And maybe you find just muddy boots in there. And if you do, that's fine. You turn around, walk back out.
Hey, you can get you a nice white button-up shirt, that you can wear with your suits for like $5.
There
with
you
a
go.
coffee stain. There you go.
It adds character.
Just throw a coat over the coffee stain.
Just
Nobody
put the
even
tie
knows.
and a suit jacket over the coffee stain, okay?
It'll be nice. It'll be your own new trend. At 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll continue to keep you updated with any moves that the Predators may or may not make before the trade deadline at 2 p.m. A couple names to keep an eye on. Alexander Carrier. It's been reported that the Predators are still trying to work on a deal for Carrier. If they cannot work on a deal with Carrier before 2 p.m., what's the market look like for him? Tyson Barrie's another one. Kevin Lankinen is the third to keep an eye on. So we'll keep you updated on that. But coming up next, as the Titans build their team in the offseason, we know they're going to have to spend money in free agency. You have far too many holes. You're going to have to address left tackle, receiver, even corner in this upcoming draft. But what about trades? I know that we're all apprehensive of trading picks, and I get it, because I am too. But what other trade pieces, what other trade assets do the Titans currently have in their back pocket? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. It is NHL trade deadline day. The NHL trade deadline is today at 2 p.m., and the Predators have made some moves. Yesterday, the Predators traded a fifth-round pick in exchange for Anthony Beauvillier from the Chicago Blackhawks, and just now, over the last few minutes or so, Jason Zucker from the Arizona Coyotes. It was reported that the Predators traded a sixth-round pick for him. I saw that of his $5.3 million yearly salary, the Predators owe him $1.15. So OBB, Open Book Barry, who will join Stillman and Company this afternoon on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game, post-trade deadline. I'm going to have to start calling him MB, Macklemore Barry, because he's thrift shopping.
Ain't nothing wrong with it.
Ain't nothing. I have zero problem with it whatsoever. If they work out, they give you some opportunities, some offense, then great. If they don't, let him go. It was a fifth and a sixth round pick, so no problem with it whatsoever. We'll keep you updated with any more moves that the Predators may or may not make until 2 p.m. But I want to transition here to the Titans. We'll also have Ask D-Mase in 30 minutes. So get those questions in for D-Mase. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So we were talking about L'Jarius Sneed a couple of days ago because it was reported by our friend Tyler Dragon, a friend of the show, that the Titans were reportedly interested in kicking the tires on Kansas City Chiefs cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. But the holdup there is the Chiefs tagged L'Jarius Sneed but gave him permission to seek a trade. So if the Titans want L'Jarius Sneed, they're going to have to trade for him. And if we talked to Tim Hasselbeck yesterday, he said, I think it's going to be a first-round pick. If I have to trade a first-round pick, no thank you on L'Jarius Sneed. The Titans just frankly are not in the position to be trading any sort of first-round picks. And frankly, I don't think I'm really in the business of trading any of the Titans' picks in this upcoming draft, especially not a pick that the Chiefs would want in exchange for L'Jarius Sneed. And I think that absolute minimum, it would be a second-round pick. So what other trade assets do the Tennessee Titans truly have?
Not many.
And how willing would you be to trade Treylon Burks in a trade package for a player like L'Jarius Sneed?
I mean, beside Treylon, I don't think they have much to trade because the guys that you believe they can get something for, they're core guys that you need on this team.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Simmons, the quarterback, Skoronski, even D-Hop. You need him this season. So he's not really an attractive trade piece in the sense of if you give him away, now you're one less pass catcher.
And also, what are you getting in return?
Exactly, absolutely.
For DeAndre Hopkins, that you're not going to get.
You're not going to get much.
I would need a first-round pick to trade DeAndre Hopkins, and you're not getting that.
You're not getting a first or a second for a trade like that. But would I put Treylon in the trade package with for L'Jarius Sneed? Yeah, I mean you have to because you're trading for a all-pro player. You're trading for a guy that many consider, a top 2-3 corner in this league. He may be the top corner in this league, or at least in free agency is.
Top free agent. I'm not even a free agent.
Yeah.
But top corner potentially on the market.
On the market
I
is
think
him.
Is very
by
fair
far,
to say.
it's him. So, you have to. If Kansas City approached you or you approached Kansas City and inquired about L'Jarius Sneed, which I'm sure Rand Carthon has or will, then you have no other pieces to potentially give other than picks, Treylon, and that's really about it because the other guys are your corner. Your team doesn't have depth whatsoever, so you don't have pieces you can trade. Mm-hmm. You're not trading Harold Landry, So who else do you trade? The only person that seems to be a tradable piece is Treylon.
Before it seemed fairly
I'm not advocating
obvious,
the trade for. I'm not advocating for him to be traded either.
But I think that you could view him as a potentially tradable asset because I don't think, at least I am not. I am not looking at Traylon Burks as, okay, this is where his role is going to be on this team this upcoming season, because I don't think that you can. Mm-hmm. It now seems fairly obvious to me, it hasn't happened, but it seems fairly obvious to me that Chris Jones is going back to the Chiefs. So the one scenario that I could have seen the Titans trading Jeffrey Simmons is if you trade Jeffrey Simmons for a couple of first-round picks, you go out and you sign Chris Jones, you trade your defensive tackle to bring in another defensive tackle and, frankly, probably upgrade at the defensive tackle position. But now that seems like it's off the table, I'm not looking to trade Jeffrey Simmons. But when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed, and this is something that I brought up on Jared versus Joe, said, what do the Chiefs need desperately? Receivers. They need pass catchers. Now, what does the league view Traylon Burks as? Frankly, I don't know. What would you think that you could get in exchange for Traylon Burks? I said possibly a 5th-round pick. Kansas City's going to want more than that.
I'm hanging on to Burks.
You would?
5th-round pick?
If you, yeah.
No. There's too much. There's still enough flash to me with Burks.
I see.
To give him up for a 5th.
If I can't, I wouldn't give him up for a 5th. I'm just talking about value, maybe how the league would view him. I'm not trading him for a 5th-round pick, but if I could trade him for another position of need, it would be Burks in another pick. Mm-hmm. Like if it was Burks in a 3rd for L'Jarius Sneed.
Well, you have no 3rd. So
but
that's just a hypothetical.
Okay. Tim Hasselbeck was saying that might cost more than that to get
for
Sneed.
L'Jarius. I mean, Kansas City's going to ask for more.
Right. And so it depends on who's calling, how many teams are calling. Can you pit one against the other? Mm-hmm. You guys keep going down this road of Sneed. I am just not on board with this. They're not ready to win. One guy isn't going to help enough.
Well,
I know what your argument
defense.
is, that he will help the defense. Mm-hmm. But I think what you guys are saying is he's not just a 1-year deal. He's going to help you for
the next
several years. But if you're giving up so much,
years.
If you're giving up a lot to get him and you're paying him top dollar, I just think the formula is too much. It's too top heavy for your roster. This roster needs more depth and players across the roster, not in the one spot. That's how I look at it.
You would sign more than just L'Jarius Sneed.
But it would take up a lot of your pieces of the pie. He takes up a big slice of the pie if you're going to, because he's going to want top dollar. That's what struck me with Tim yesterday is, okay, so if he's playing on the tag this year.
You would have to pay him.
He wants to reset the market. He's going to be one of the top corners in the NFL. That's huge. That's a lot of money. That's a big investment.
Mm-hmm. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you have the cash to spend.
Well, okay, but it's one player, so he's got to dominate. Mm-hmm. If he gets hurt and you have no depth behind him, then see what I'm saying? Are you better off with those assets to one guy or spreading them out and with younger players trying to acquire more draft picks and fortify the fact? Like, I just think it's a house of cards. It's too top heavy with him in there. And there's not enough of a foundation under him to have the kind of success that makes him worth it. That's how I look at it. So I am out of this game. I am not in this game.
I'm not giving it up because I think he's too good of a player, and especially at a position of need that could potentially be on the market. And I hear you, Willie. I hear you. But the Titans are now in this position because they continue to try to plug holes with low-cost kind of players that –
it's going to take time. That's where they are. They're in the this is a rebuilding project.
But if you continue to do the same thing over and over again, you're going to continue to find yourself in the same position, trying to find low-cost players.
Not if you keep
to
drafting
not break
well.
the bank. Well, you don't have enough draft picks. Like you need to field a team this year.
Okay, so that's to me the answer is get more draft picks.
How?
Well, you have to wait. You have to wait, and it's going to take more than just this year to fix all of the holes. That's how I keep coming back to it. And in the meantime, I think it's a see what you've got kind of year. Going for Sneed is a let's see if we can fix everything in one fell swoop, and I don't think he does. I still don't think you have enough depth across the roster to win, even with him. Now, the one thing that
one player away.
D-Mase makes a good point that if he can be part of the next 4 years. But I just wonder, with Simmons making what he's making and what Sneed would be making, is there enough left over asset-wise to go fill the left tackle, the center, the other things that you need?
If you spend your money because you're right. They're going to have to allocate it however they're going to allocate it in regards to the positions. But if you're able to draft your left tackle, so that saves you money because you don't have to give him big bucks. You draft another receiver, that saves you money. Now you can spend money on one big free agent. Not to say that you got to go and try to get every top free agent, because realistically that's not going to happen. But if you can get one of these top free agents and then supplement everything else, because you don't have to pay these guys yet. You're not going to have to pay your left tackle unless you go get one in free agency, which you will, but you're not going to have to pay him top money because he's going to be more of I believe more of a swing tackle, right tackle that can possibly play left if something happens at that position in regards to injury. You can slide him over to the left side and sort of play like that. But I think the two positions they're going to have to pay for if they want that top-notch guy. Now, there are some cornerbacks out there in free agency, that may be a little bit cheaper than what Ladarius Sneed, because, like you said, you got to give up the picks and then you got to pay him. But if you can supplement it everywhere else, get you that top guy at that one position that's going to help, and then you kind of pay everybody accordingly. I think they're going to need a one top free agent. Now, whether they get that one top free agent, that's a different story. But I do think they need one.
Who would you classify as a top free agent?
Chris Jones is a top free agent. The kid out of Miami is a top free agent. Let me see who else is out there.
Christian Wilkins.
Christian Wilkins. Other than the quarterbacks that are top free agents.
So a top free agent at the right position without giving up additional draft capital to get. See, that's the difference in Sneed to me. It's not only are you going after
and that's
a guy,
a tough
you're
one to
giving
swallow.
up something pretty significant to get him. That's why I am out. Now, a top-level free agent is a different thing, because another thing that I think you're saying, D-Mase, is if you get a guy like that and he's worth the money, even if you're saying I'm overpaying a little bit, but he's going to fill a big hole. Also, that guy can become a magnet for other free agents if it works right, because you're like, oh, so-and-so, D-Mase went over to the Titans. Oh, I want to play for the Titans. I do think there's a little bit to be said for that, right? There's a domino effect. And maybe there's more. It's not like, oh, they're just trying to be cheap here and there. Like sometimes a spearhead of, let's get this guy. We're paying good money, and this guy is going to help. Maybe he's going to be a good influence on the younger players, and he's also going to be the type of player that maybe can be a magnet to attract other good players in the coming years.
That happens, and you're right, because that happens a lot in the NFL. Or that happens a lot in sports in regards to free agent signings. They see who's on the team already, or they see, oh, he signed? Oh, okay. Let me take a closer look. Let me really go there and see what's going on over there, because you start to see the potential of what that team could do go up. Prior to that person not signing, you probably thought, I ain't touching that team. But then they start signing. They get you get your top free agent. Then you get you a bunch of other sort of like guys that can fit in places that are not going to cost you a lot, but they can be starters. Now you got guys that may get released that are still really good players in June. They may look, oh, okay, y'all have him. Y'all drafted that. That might be a good place for me.
You're still going to have to pay the Titan tax.
Yeah.
The non-contender tax.
Yeah. I'm not.
In free agency.
In free agency, you may have to, but let's not get it twisted. These guys want money. They want money. When it comes down to it, they want money. And you're not going to, I don't think, realistically, guys in going into free agency, they're not saying, even though there could be a possibility, but from my experience, I'm not saying, well, you got to pay more because your team's not good. I don't want to go to your team if your team's not good, and I'm at the latter part, like the second half of my career. I'm like, I don't want to touch it unless I see there's something there. Like when I left here and went to Baltimore, there was a lot there. So I knew, like, my second half of my career, this is a good place for me to go because I would get an opportunity to win. The Titans have to make sure this offseason, this draft, that they set this team up to win, because other free agents are going to be looking at that, not just this year, but next year as well. They're going to be looking at how are you constructing your team.
So last year, the Titans spent $230 million in that area on the roster. Right now, in terms of cash spending currently on the roster, they're at $123,646,237. So you got over about $100 million of cash to spend. Mm-hmm. And when you look at it, you could say, well, you could spread that money around. But I look at it like how I build my closet. Like, am I going to want to spend $10 on this T-shirt that's probably going to get holes in it after the first few wears? Or am I willing
we just got done talking about Macklemore.
Am I willing to spend $100 on a T-shirt that I know I can wear all the time and it's going to launder well, I'm going to have it for a long time, and it's going to benefit me? That's how I view the Titans. Look, you can spend, a small contract here, a small contract here, a small contract here on a couple of players that you feel like, maybe they'll play for us. Maybe we can hope that they can do things for us, or we can spend that money on really good players at certain positions. And you're not going to spend a ton of money, top dollar, on every single free agent at positions of need. You're not going to do that.
You're going on the assumption
that you're going to have to
analogy
spend on certain positions.
Yeah, but your analogy assumes to a degree that when you spend top dollar, you're getting a great player, but that's not the case.
But you're going to have to spend top dollar to get great players. Spending top dollar
but free
on
agents
players
are flawed players, right?
And that's inherently what free agency is.
Yeah.
You're not going to spend top dollar on players that you don't think are going to be great players. You're overpaying for the sweater
that you're going to wear a lot.
I'm not going to overpay for a sweater that's going to fall apart in a couple of weeks, or that's not a guaranteed staple in my closet.
But that's what you're paying for first day free agency sometimes. Sometimes those guys don't end up being – they're used good.
Just be too expensive for certain teams. You got the cash to spend. You have $100 million in cash to spend. Mm-hmm. Like, if the Chiefs didn't want to pay Chris Jones what he wanted, like, that is a free agent that I'm willing to overspend for, because you know what you're going to get. Looking at some of these free agents out there, like Tre'Davious White in Buffalo, like, I'm not going to spend $20 million a year on Tre'Davious White because he's always hurt and has been hurt every single season the last 4 years. Like, that's just not a smart way to allocate some of your funds. Ask D-Mase. Coming up next, we'll get your questions for D-Mase. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
D-Mase.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mase.
We'll welcome you in.
Now on Caroline, Willy, and
D-Mase.
on 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Ask D-Mase. Get those questions in for Derek Mason. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. And our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sam in Atlanta is on the line with a question on free agency in the NFL. What's up, Sam?
ATL.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, I had a question in regards to what you were speaking earlier about the free agency, the closet term that you were using. I think that's interesting. In regards to that, I think like you could get a few good expensive pieces in regards to a closet, and then supplement everything else with cheaper clothes. And that way, when you're on the field, you look like you're doing something in a sense. You look like you have your pieces together. So I think they really should at least go for 3 or 4 big name free agents, and especially on the defensive side, and then supplement like the rest of the offense in the draft.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. From Atlanta. And he's right. And, you know, when you talk about pieces, I learned this from my daughter, that you got to have pieces in your closet.
Investment pieces.
Yeah, investment pieces. And you sort of build around those pieces where you spend on that one piece. You may spend, you know, I don't know, $1,000 on a jacket, you know, but then you spend, you know, $20 on a T-shirt to put under the jacket,
You'll have that
sport
jacket
coat.
forever.
And
that's
it'll
really,
look like
that's really the salary
everything
cap, right?
looks great on, because the main piece is sturdy, ready to go, looks good, performs good. Everything's great about it. But then what's underneath is the other pieces that you'll supplement. They're good pieces as well. But
That's
you don't
a
have
great
to
point.
pay as much for those pieces
Right.
than you do for that one piece.
And in the NFL salary cap, even though there's flexibility, right? It's not a hard cap like there is in hockey. Somewhere in your wardrobe, you have to have bargains, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're low round picks or undrafted free agents that fill holes, or free agents off the street, or
Like Juwan Jennings in
bargain.
San Francisco.
But you need bargains. You need some bargains in there, because you can't go spend $1,000 on every piece of clothing because you don't have enough money. You can't do it.
But to D-Mace's point, I think Juwan Jennings in San Francisco is the one that always comes to mind of, was he drafted even? If he was, it was like a 6th or a 7th round pick. But would Juwan Jennings have as much production as he has had if Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk weren't on the other side? I would venture to say probably not. So you need those investment pieces, but like you said, Willie, you can pay every single player on your roster $40 million a year. But it's investing in the right players. It's paying the right players. But that's also San Francisco, a Super Bowl contender. The Titans are in a point right now that, like, you're going to have to overspend. Like, you're going to have to overpay for certain players. One, it's the non-contender tax, because, like, we were talking about this yesterday, D-Mase. If I'm Chris Jones, let's say the Titans have $35 million a year on the table, but the Chiefs are saying, hey, we'll give you 30. I'm going to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Because I can still make my money, and I'm still going to have the opportunity to win a Super Bowl every single year. So if you're the Titans, you're going to have to pony up a little bit more cash. And you also just need players.
Unless, you know, because some free agents, you just never know, especially a guy like Chris Jones, who's won 3 Super Bowls, and now he may look at it a little bit different.
Maybe he just wants the money.
Maybe he just wants to get as much money as he possibly can, because the one thing or the 3 things that he has, can't no one take him away, and that's the Super Bowl ring. So, and Juwan Jennings was a 7th round pick for the San Francisco 49ers.
7th round pick, thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, it's going to, I would love to see, you know, next week how aggressive, at least on the first day, they're going to be. I'm not talking aggressive meaning different players, but are they going to be aggressive with 1 or 2 guys and make a push at those 1 or 2 guys for the big dollar. And if they don't get them, it's like, okay, let's regroup. Now let's start just filling holes with good players and adding depth.
Tim is on the line with a question on Vandy B-Ball. WWDD, what would Derek do? What's up, Tim?
Hey, how are you? Derek, look, I'm going to make a statement before I ask. You're a pro athlete, and I'm not going to say former because once you're an athlete and a pro athlete, you're that way until you die. You have a different mindset than the general public. Say you were coaching a team. Jerry don't care anymore. You can tell it by the way he's coaching. Why do you keep doing it? Why does he keep doing it? Somebody says it's for the money. He's got more money than he can burn a wet dog with. He don't need the money.
I don't even know what that
think I've heard that one.
I like that one.
How can that be a situation to where he gets any enjoyment out of getting his, beat every day?
Thanks for your call, Tim.
Thanks for your call, Chip. I'm not going to go as that far to say he doesn't care because, like you said, Tim, athletes, whether you are a current athlete or you are a former athlete, which you're still an athlete, or you are a CEO of a company, that ego is there, and you always want to go out there and win, no matter what. I don't care how the circumstance look. You feel that you are the one that can get it done. You are the one that can change it around for everybody. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm not going to sit here and say that Coach Stack doesn't care. I just wonder, how did this team fall off so far? Like, this was a team that seems like they were trending up last season. And we were arguing about them. They should have made the tournament. Look at their strength of schedule, all this stuff that we were talking about with the Vanderbilt men's basketball team. And to go from that to what they are now, that's what, like, how did that happen? But it all falls on the head coach because you went out and got those players. Now, whether he gets fired, I don't know. But if I'm an AD, I'm trying to figure out, like, how did this happen? We need to sit down and have a conversation. How did this happen? And can it be changed? I'm asking him that question, and I'm asking the other people that have authority to make decisions, can it be changed? And if it can, then okay. But if the consensus says no, then I guess we got to move on.
And I don't know if Jerry Stackhouse indeed does not care.
Yeah, I'm not going to say he doesn't care because he's an app. I think he cares.
But the fact that people feel that way,
that's
the damning thing. That's
and
the very
I think that's where
thing.
he probably, even though he may not ever have that thought, he's probably sitting. We've played the press conferences where he's gotten a little testy on that stuff. He's like, how can you say this kind of stuff? I do think just because people are asking this question, he probably needs to go off and say, okay, why are people feeling this way about me? What can I do to maybe change this perception, even though I might not he might be sitting there, of course I care.
Exactly.
Why do you think I'm doing this? I like the caller says, he's made, it's not like he's,
hungry for money. Or
right.
Need money.
He's been a successful professional for a long time, right?
Got more money than you can burn a wet dog with? Yes. I don't even know what that means.
I never heard that before.
It sounds good.
But I do think he can turn around and say, okay, if people are thinking this, what do I need to do to kind of reassure people that, yes, I am going to get this thing done, and including starting with probably the athletic director, Candace Story-Lee, because like you said, she's got to sit down and say, tell me how this is going to be better next year. If I'm going to keep you around, you got to tell me it's going to be a heck of a lot better this year because we have slipped to almost the bottom. They are at the bottom.
Prove it to me.
It's not an easy league to climb up from the bottom from.
This is one of the most, if not the most competitive leagues in college basketball. But I look at what Lamont Paris did at South Carolina. South Carolina was horrendous last year. They were picked to finish 14th last in the conference this season. Now South Carolina, there is still an opportunity for South Carolina to tie the regular season SEC championship. Like, South Carolina is a very good team. So you can turn it around. But it's how much faith do you have in the head coach to find the right players to start turning things around. So prove it to me. Show it to me. You can tell me all day long that you care, and I think that you do. Prove it to me. Show the fan base.
Yeah.
Because the fan base clearly is checked out.
Yeah, if we have people, and I'm sure across our shows, there are people concerned and have the same sentiment, whether it be texting or calling. And if that is indeed the case, if I'm, Candace Lee, I'm like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
So.
Another texter texts in, says, D-Mase, TD said you trained Darnell Mooney before he was drafted. Did you?
Yeah, I trained over at Boost. They have a, great facility over there where they do combine training for individuals, and some pro guys do go over there as well. I loved Mooney when I was training him. He was easy to train because all of the tools were there. He was smooth, good body control. He had a burst of speed. I'm not sure if he has long speed, but he has good speed. And he catches the ball well. Really good route runner. That's what I admired most about him, his route running. So if I'm the Titans, and now the tricky part is Tank Tolbert coached him in Chicago. If Tank Tolbert doesn't vouch for him, then you don't need to have him here, because the coach that coached him, if I'm not then vouching for him, like, you need to go get him, coach. Yeah. Like, he'd be an asset for us. If he's not saying that, then something went wrong in that receiver room. I do wonder, why did he drop off? I know they had different coaches, different offensive coordinators. The offensive line was horrible. Fields was, up and down, and wasn't mainly because of Field, but because of what was in front of him. I want to know, why did his production slip so much? You went from, your first year, you started to show flashes. Then your second year, you became that guy. You had over 1,000 yards, and it seemed like you were moving up, like you were going to be, probably not the top tier of receivers, the top 5 or 7, but you could have played your way into that 8 to 15 type of receiver. What happened? Why did your production drop off so much? I know you were injured some, but you went from 1,000 yards to 400 yards to another 400-yard season. And you were a starter. I need to know why. But I like him as a player. I'm sure he has a really good work ethic. So I would, if I'm the Titans, I'm talking to his representatives because he's another good pass catcher.
What would his role be? What should his role be?
Listen, the good thing about Mooney is he's seen both ends of the spectrum, sort of like me. He's been the forgotten guy, or the guy that wasn't the one or the two, and he was that 3 or maybe even a 4, to being the one. So he has a good perspective on both ends. I see him as a 2. He can play 1 if you need him to play. If someone's injured, he can be a 1, but it's not. He's sort of like a Corey Davis. Like, Corey can be a 1 if you need him for a couple of games, but he's really a 2, like a legit. He's a 2 that can, as he gets older, that can segue into a 3 and a 4 or a 4. But right now he has the ability to be a 2 if you got a damn good 1. Like, if Traylon Burks was on his game, adding Mooney, those 2 guys will work well together because they're 2 different type of receivers.
Right back into your questions for D-Mase. Ask D-Mase continues coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow as MTSU men's basketball takes on Louisiana Tech on the road. Pregame at 1:30 p.m., tip-off at 2, with coverage also available on 93.3 Classic Hits app and at 93.3classichits.com.
All right, let's tell you about Lee Company. Put Lee Company on your team, and you'll always be ahead of the game with home maintenance, improvements, and repairs. They're a big sponsor of our Nashville Predators coverage. By the way, if you didn't hear, the Predators have traded for veteran Jason Zucker for a 6th-round pick coming over from Arizona. 27 goals last year for Pittsburgh, and a lesser total this year, 9 goals this year. But we'll see what happens going forward, and be listening for the rest of the season. Lee Company will be part of our coverage here on 102.5 The Game throughout. And the home maintenance plan is really what I like to talk about because that's what we have at our house. We pay a small monthly fee, and you get a comprehensive electrical, plumbing, and home inspection every year, and they will twice annually check your heating and air conditioning systems. So especially the air conditioning at this time of the year. Get it checked up front. Make sure it's raring to go before the weather gets hot every day. So this is a great time of the year to call Lee Company and start the process. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. And, of course, when there are repairs to be made, you will get discounts on those repairs if you're part of the home maintenance plan. Lee Company. Give them a call, 615-567-1000. Trusted by the Nashville Predators and homeowners throughout Middle Tennessee.
Ask D-Mase. Get those questions in for Derek Mason. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Before we get back into your phones, a little bit more NHL trade deadline news. This is coming out from Elliot Friedman here just a few moments ago. Philadelphia has traded Wade Allison to Nashville in exchange for Denis Gurianov. Sounds like AHL swapping back and forth.
It's more of a depth move. Gurianov played last night for the Predators. He hadn't been playing much. They took a flyer on him, low-cost free agent, 1-year deal last year. He's only got 1 goal. Just hasn't really found his place. I don't know, I'll be honest, anything about Wade Allison. I'm just looking at his numbers. He was a second-round pick. He hasn't played in the NHL this year. He played 60 games for the Flyers last year and had 9 goals and 6 assists. So I would imagine he's a depth piece and nothing more. And I think Gurianov, they've got other options now with Zucker and Beauvillier and the kid Jarrett Anderson Dolan that they picked off of waivers. So I think they feel like they've got, plus the Milwaukee guys, way more options before they would use Gurianov. So they're giving him a fresh start in Philly.
Makes sense to me. I don't have any problem with that. All right, let's get back into some of your questions for D-Mase. One texter texts in and says, D-Mase, which do you think is more intimidating, being an NFL free agent or going through the NFL draft?
Depends on where you're at in your career when you become a free agent. Because if you have not, put together a good resume, then free agency can be intimidating because it's like, okay, where am I going to go? Who wants my services? Am I going to be a part of the first wave of free agency? Am I going to be a part of the second wave? Or do I have to wait till somebody get injured, in camp and then get on a team? Obviously, being a rookie entering the draft, there's a lot of things going on. Where would I go? Where am I going to spend the next at least 3 years of my life? Who's going to draft me? What position am I going to get drafted? So I think there's some similarities in being a rookie, getting drafted, and being a free agent. But it depends on the free agency side. It depends on how good your resume is. If you have a resume like Chris Jones, it don't matter. I mean, I know I'm going somewhere, and I'm going to get a big old bag to go to that place. So I'm not too worried. But if you're a guy that doesn't have the resume of a Chris Jones, now you're like, man, when am I going to go? When am I going to sign? And where am I going to sign?
That, I think, is the kicker there. Because a guy like Chris Jones, he can go wherever he wants.
Exactly.
And he's going to get paid a whole lot of money no matter where he is. But I do think no matter where you are in your career as a free agent, you at least have that underlying comfort of, I've made some money.
Yeah.
In the draft, that's scary.
Well,
you're not having any control of where you're going.
Some people get NILs.
That's true. That's true.
Some NIL deals is worth more than some guys making their 3 years as a rookie. The first year, second year, or third year, depending on where you're drafted. If you're drafted in the 5th and on, Caleb Williams has made more money than you in the last 2 years. So it's just.
Yep. I mean, Caleb Williams makes significantly more money than Brock Purdy.
Exactly.
And Brock Purdy was quarterbacking the Super Bowl team this past year. Just absolutely crazy. Another texter texts in says, D-Mase, was it more difficult to play in the NFL or pronounce some of these hockey players' names?
Oh, my goodness. I don't even try. I defer to Willy when it comes to pronouncing those guys. I got to hear it like 10 times before I even come close to trying to pronounce it. But
Willy says them so gracefully.
Exactly.
There are 0 vowels.
But what I've noticed with Willy, it's just Willy just says it, and if it's if it's wrong, which he's not wrong 99% of the time, he's right. But if it is wrong that 1%, he just go with it. It's like, hey, just keep talking, and people will forget that you said said the name wrong or you missed part of the name. People are not worried about that. Maybe the guy that has that name is, if you hear you say it. But, listen, playing in the NFL was damn hard. That's why only a few play that sport that goes along with hockey, baseball, basketball, and I'm just talking about the team sports. There's a reason why, out of 1,700 kids that come out every year, in the NFL, it's probably a little bit less. I'm just saying 1,700 as a number. That only 1% of those guys stick. It's because it's hard. And just imagine, on the flip side, basketball is even worse because there's not a lot of seats. Baseball is bad too. There's just not a lot of seats. Hockey is the same way. You ain't cracking that starting lineup unless somebody get hurt. You're not even cracking the fourth line unless somebody gets hurt or somebody's playing terrible. And then you better be playing really good in Milwaukee or some other, league, minor league that you're playing in.
Yeah.
Team in their minor league system. You better be doing damn good because you may only get one shot at coming up and proving your worth in the MLB as well as the NHL. Now, football and basketball are not. Basketball does have D League, but it's not like the NHL and the MLB.
Yeah, I mean, we're playing the minors. Well, you've been through it. It's a grind.
It is a grind.
Yeah, and you only get one shot. A lot of guys only really get one shot. And if they don't make do on that one shot, you may not ever get it again.
I do think you really separate the people who love the game from the people that just like the game.
Yeah.
Especially when you get into those situations where, okay, here are your choices. You're going to play, but you're going to be in the worst conditions. They're not going to make it easy for you. I would imagine for an NFL guy who's constantly shuttling from practice squad to practice squad or getting cut and having to go to tryouts on a Tuesday, but keeping yourself in shape on your own, like that takes great dedication. So when a guy gets through that and makes it up there, I always take note because that's somebody who loves the game.
Yeah, he stuck with it.
Jack Texan says, D-Mase, what other suitors did you have besides the Ravens in free agency?
There was two other teams. And there could have been more, but I wanted to sign early. I signed very early in the free agency. I think I ended up signing like the first day of free agency or the second day of free agency, something like that. Because I wanted the place to go. I wanted to play for a contender. So I knew my resume was damn good, and somebody was going to want me that was contending. So there were a few teams, but I went to one place, and my experience there was great. Would have loved to stay here, but it didn't happen. But my experience was great in Baltimore. I had an opportunity to, be in an AFC championship game once in the divisional round. And I was there, 6 years? We went to the playoffs 4 to 6 years I was there. So we had a nice run, but there were other teams on that list.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Appreciate everyone getting in those questions for D-Mase. But coming up next, this Tennessee basketball team, it's different. It feels different, at least. And when we get in the tournament, we'll see how different it is. But depending on what the Vols do this weekend, could their tournament path be significantly tipped in their favor? We'll get into that coming up next, since we are less than a week removed from the men's and SEC tournament kicking off in Nashville next week. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. We are officially less than 1 hour removed from the NHL trade deadline at 2 p.m. Central. Now, the Predators, so far, they've been buyers. They traded for Anthony Beauvillier for a fifth-round pick with the Chicago Blackhawks yesterday. Traded away Yakov Trenin to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for a third-round pick. I think that was a good move. Take third-round pick for Yakov Trenin. And then another move today, the Predators traded for Jason Zucker for from the Arizona Coyotes for a sixth-round pick. Overall, bargain shopping from Barry Trotz so far today. Now, a couple of names that at least I haven't seen anything on so far. You have an hour left until the deadline. Carrier, Lankinen, Tyson Barrie.
Right, and I do think if you want Tyson Barrie, you're a phone call away. And look, I really wish the best for Tyson Barrie. He's been a pro handling this. If they can't find a deal for him, I do think they'll probably just hold on to him for depth, I would guess, and that's not great for Tyson Barrie. But
I don't think he wants to be here. It's
a bonus, right? But it would be a bonus for the Predators because they really have no choice because they've given Tyson Barrie's agent every opportunity. Like I'm sure he's making calls too.
Yeah.
Hey, my guy's still out there. Because as guys get moved around, it opens up other possibilities. So maybe a last-minute deal for Barrie's out there. With Lankinen, remember tomorrow is the start of a back-to-back. At Columbus tomorrow, at Minnesota Sunday, an afternoon game, both afternoon games. So UC Saros is not going to play both. So Kevin Lankinen would be scheduled to start the other one.
Yeah.
But if he gets traded, then you're whisking in Askarov to play one of those games. So that's a decision that will be made, I guess, in the next hour. But to characterize the moves they've made, like they made that small swap that Nick mentioned in the update there, Wade Allison for Denis Gurianov. That's more of a depth swap. This is a guy that we're not seeing useful for your guy that you're not really using. So I don't know what they're going to do with Allison, but he would seem to be under the category of depth. Zucker and Beauvillier, I think, fit potentially on the middle six. They're both on expiring contracts. Neither has had a great season this year, so the cost was extremely low. So it's a low-risk, potential reward kind of thing. And if they both bust, you're out a fifth-round pick and a sixth-round pick. That's it.
That's fine.
And you got a third for Trenin, which arguably is more valuable than both of the other draft picks combined.
Yeah, so good moves so far, I think, from Barry Trotz, but we'll keep you updated now over the next 55 minutes until the trade deadline. Barry Trotz will join Stillman and Company this afternoon, recapping the NHL trade deadline. So far, no moves since the Denis Gurianov move reported about an hour or so ago. I'm monitoring Elliot Friedman's Twitter, so we'll keep you up to date with up-to-the-minute information. I want to talk Tennessee Volunteers. I want to talk Vols hoops. Because Tennessee takes on Kentucky tomorrow. Now, Tennessee, in their last four, I said, man, that is a freaking gauntlet. Number 11 Auburn at home, at Alabama, the 14th ranked team in the country. You go at South Carolina on the road, a team that's already beaten you at home, and then your season finale is at home against Kentucky. Tennessee's won 3 out of those last 4. Kentucky tomorrow. Now, I think, and I want your thoughts on this, if Tennessee beats Kentucky, I don't care what they do in the SEC tournament. Tennessee should be a 1 seed.
I was looking at that question. You posed that question to us this morning to kind of chew on because I knew we were going to talk about it today. But so you guys tell me, D-Mase, I think they would be worthy of a 1 seed for sure. And we've talked about that. When you watch
quad 1 wins in 4 games.
So I'm looking at the Ken Palm rankings right now. You've got Tennessee 5th right now, behind Houston, Connecticut, Purdue, and Arizona. So which one of the, who do they bump out, I guess, to get a 1 seed? Because it's right on the border.
Probably
right
Arizona.
on the. You think they have a better resume than Arizona? I think you'd make that case.
Yeah,
it's
Arizona's
a tougher
had
league.
some bad
Much
losses.
tougher league than the Pac-12. Arizona's very good, but I do think Tennessee's got the. I would take Tennessee over Arizona too.
I wouldn't say that because in the first meeting, They beat Kentucky at Kentucky's place by 10?
It whooped them.
Yeah, it was by double digits, 10 points, 11 points. But if you watch the game, Tennessee totally dominated the game. Period. It wasn't even close. Now Kentucky's playing much better now. That team, I don't know what has went on in that locker room, but they are playing much better. They are playing good basketball now, which lead me to say this. Maybe 3-4 weeks ago, I would have said, well, Tennessee, as long as they win that last game versus Kentucky, records are similar. Doesn't matter what they do. As long as they win a game or two in the SEC tournament, they're good. But I think they have to beat Kentucky this week. But even with beating Kentucky, if Kentucky ends up winning the SEC tournament and say UT doesn't get past the first round, losing the second round, I'm not sure they are legitimate. I'm not sure that they're going to just pencil them in as a number one seed. I think as long as Kentucky continues to win, and say if Kentucky goes to Knoxville and beat UT, now UT does have to win the SEC championship, or Kentucky has to get put out early. I think whoever goes the furthest, if Kentucky wins this weekend and they end up winning the SEC championship or making it to the championship, then more than likely they will get a number one seed over UT.
Kentucky?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think Kentucky even has a path to being a one seed. I don't think. Now, double check me on the numbers there. But even if Kentucky wins the SEC tournament, I don't think
Willy?
that they have. I'm looking at the net right now, and net, Ken Palm, both are going to be factors.
They're going to be
in
similar.
this.
They're going to be similar. Yeah.
But Kentucky's now 20th in net rankings. I don't think that there's.
So you don't think if they
win
win the SEC tournament as good as they have been playing? What do you think the highest they go? A 2?
They'll be a 2.
This is where
or a 3.
I think sometimes look, I went nuts on the net last year because we were focusing a lot on Vanderbilt trying to get in, but I think the mistake that the committee is making now, I think they're too reliant. They use the net too much and don't balance it enough with the eye test, because
Kentucky's playing really good basketball now.
They always say, hey, we're not winning the end of the season more than the beginning of the season. I think that's wrong. I think that's philosophically not the right way to do it. I think how you're playing at the end of the season should mean more. It shouldn't mean everything, but it should mean more. It should be weighted. Why? Because so many teams are new at the beginning of each season, especially with NIL and the transfers. There's a lot of turnover. And sometimes it takes coaches a month, maybe 2 months, to really get your system grinded out with your new group. And so I think that's been happening with Kentucky is way better now than they were 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. They're getting better. I wouldn't want to play them.
No.
But I don't know that to be a 1 seed, but the other thing that I hear a lot is, the conference tournaments, they don't really move the needle a whole lot. Why not?
They should.
You're going to have these tournaments. You're going to televise them,
especially the SEC.
I think they should mean a lot. I think it should be weighted. If you win your conference tournament, that should be a big boost. But no, that would mean the committee's got to work extra hard in those last couple of days. It should mean something. But you get the feeling that it's all but done. But when they throw the ball up on Sunday, it's like, we already got the field pretty much set.
And I do think that it should mean something, because I do think that the conferences should want to maintain the integrity of the conference tournament. I was having this conversation with someone last night. I said, hey, a Tennessee fan, if Tennessee beats Kentucky, they should be a 1 seed. Yeah. And I would agree that they would be, let me look at their quad 1 wins. Tennessee would then be 9-5 in quad 1 wins. I think that's really freaking impressive. So this person asked me, well, what's the point of Tennessee even trying in the conference tournament if they know that they have a 1 seed locked up? And honestly, that's a fair point. Like, you should want to win. Like, you should want to have that accolade on your resume, because nothing in the tournament is guaranteed. And let's say Tennessee loses in the second round of the SEC tournament because they're kind of waving the white flag and they want to rest their starters, and then they get bounced in the Sweet 16. Well, you fell short in the tournament, and you didn't even get far in the SEC tournament. So I do think that you have to take everything that you can get, but it is a fair question that if you're not going to weigh the conference tournaments at least a little bit more, if your seed is already locked up going into the conference tournament, well, then why not give your starters a week break?
But I think you, like Willie said, you have to. I think you have to count the tournament for this reason. And I go back to Kentucky. Kentucky's 5-6 in their quad ones. Well, they can pick up a quad one this week, which will make them 6-6, and they can pick up at least 2 quad one wins in the tournament.
Yeah, if the draw falls
if the draw falls, in their favor, the right way, they can pick up 2 more quad wins on the way to winning the SEC championship. But the flip side of that is UT can also do that too. Mm-hmm. So I think the tournament, the SEC tournament, it should mean a lot, especially this year, because the SEC is the top conference in basketball this season. They are.
Either the SEC or the Big 12.
Exactly. So to me, if you then win your tournament and you're considered the best conference, this season, that should mean something.
I'm with you. It should. I don't know how much it does.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if Tennessee beats Kentucky tomorrow, I don't care what they do in the tournament.
Oh,
frankly.
yeah. Tennessee beat
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
They're a 1 seed.
But they can't lose in the first round. They can't.
Well, they'll have a bye.
They have a bye. They have to buy. Well, they got to win one game. You have to win one game.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to lose that first
Exactly.
game.
It wouldn't be a great look, but I would still, even if that does happen, I'm with you. It would not be a great look, and it would be so disappointing if that did happen. But I would say, well, look what they just did. Yeah. They just beat Alabama, Kentucky, South Carolina at Auburn. Mm-hmm. They whooped Alabama in their own gym, and Tennessee's number 1 player had only 13 points when he can drop 30 on any given night. I would say, look, I hear you. I know it's an early exit from the tournament, but look what they just did in the regular season. So I am on the Tennessee should be a number 1 seed train.
I mean, if they win this weekend versus Kentucky, which means they would have swept.
But what if they don't? Then what do they need to do?
I think they need to win a tournament. I think they need to win the
outright?
SEC tournament. Yeah, I think they do, because you've lost. Now you give, if it's not Kentucky, now you give another team an opportunity to slip in that number 1 seed. It's not set in stone. I think there's probably only really 2 teams that I would say really don't have to win their tournament, UConn and Purdue. Don't you think those 2 teams would still be number 1 seed? Houston. Well, I mean, okay, Houston. So that last one is up in the air.
Yeah. So
it would be Arizona or Tennessee.
And that
so
is
you
the one
have
thing
to win it. To me, I think you have to win it.
And I think that is one thing to keep in mind. If you're doing it in the sort of the last number 1 and the first number 2 will be kind of in the same. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they'll do it that way, but in theory, the last number 4 isn't a whole lot different than the top number 2. And I think that's what Tennessee's looking at, right? If there are 2, they'll be a top 2. Well, and in theory, they should be in the same region as the lowest number 1 seed. So it's almost interchangeable, although you could argue maybe you'll face a couple tougher teams in the draw, even though 16 beat a 1 last year. 16
did beat a 1. Was that the Fairleigh Dickinson Purdue game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that happened.
Purdue
they led the whole game. That was the weirdest game I think I've ever seen.
When you have a 7'11" guy and I'm like,
that was a nightmare. I just can't imagine being a Purdue fan and watching that game. And it happened to Virginia a few years before, and they won the whole thing the next year. That's probably Purdue's probably singing that song. Hey, it happened, Virginia. They lost. This could be our year. We lost in the first round. We're coming back next year. We're going to win the whole thing. I don't know.
Our college basketball insider Joe Rexrode clarifies that the best case scenario is a 3 seed for Kentucky.
Best case, okay. Even if they win the tournament?
Yeah.
Because they just don't weigh the tournament like I think they should.
But Kentucky
Although the one thing I would say, like Kentucky, how much advantage do you give Kentucky because of the obvious, right? They're going to play basically home games. Like Vanderbilt beat them last year in Nashville in the SEC tournament, but it was 90% Kentucky fans.
Yeah.
So it's like you won on a road court. It's not winning at Rupp, which Vanderbilt did as well.
Yeah.
But Kentucky creates an advantage in the neutral site. So how does the committee look on that? I don't know. but that means something.
I
So
don't
Kentucky
know.
has an advantage when they come to the SEC tournament because they're going to take over the gym.
Yeah, that they will. But I mean, I will defer to Joe if he says, the best case scenario
because
is
they look at the
3
net now.
seed.
I don't think
the committee is
But
to me. The
but I'm
committee is
looking at
lazy.
I'm
They're
looking at
lazier
Kentucky
than
now.
they used to be.
Exactly.
They're
I'm
not
looking at
scouting.
Kentucky now
They just look
and
at the
what they're
net.
doing.
Oh, here's the net.
Kentucky went 5-6 in quad 1 games, and best case scenario they go 6-6. I'm sorry, if you're 500 in quad 1 games, you don't get to.
But
be
this
a 1.
team looks so much different than they did at the beginning of the season,
and that's what they don't weigh.
Exactly.
They don't weigh it. They
This
just say,
team
here's your
has
net. Here's
you
your
don't
net.
want to play Kentucky. And Tennessee's a damn good team, and I know Tennessee doesn't care. But if you were in Kentucky's one of those teams, now they're starting to hit their stride. And they are a dangerous team to play because those really good players are starting to play that way now.
Kentucky is a team that I think could beat anyone, but also could lose to anyone in any round of the tournament.
Yeah, we can say that about everybody, just about everybody, outside of UConn.
I couldn't say that about Tennessee. Honestly,
I could
right
say
now.
they could lose. Based upon Barnes' record, I would say they can lose to anybody and they can beat anybody.
And that's fair because Rick Barnes doesn't have, the sexiest resume in March. But I will use Andy Reid as the example of Andy Reid was the butt of everyone's jokes because he could always be the coach that would win a lot of games and could get you in the dance, but just couldn't finish it out until he did. And it just takes once to change that narrative. And I think the difference with Tennessee, the reason why I cannot say that about Tennessee, that they could beat anyone or lose anyone, is because they can win different styles of games, and I don't think that Kentucky can. Kentucky wants to beat you 111 to 105. But, Tennessee just beat South Carolina 66 to 59. 2 games earlier, they beat Auburn 92 to 84. Like, they can beat you in a defensive, grinded-out, low-scoring game, or they can beat you in an incredibly high-scoring, high-powered offensive kind of game. That's the difference to me. Like
I agree with
Kentucky
that.
and Alabama both. If they have an off shooting night,
because of the way they
could
play
lose
defense.
to anyone. Right. It's the way that Tennessee plays defense that Kentucky has struggled with all season long, that Alabama has struggled with all season long. Ever since Nate Oates has gotten there, they've struggled. And if they're having an off-shooting night like we saw Alabama have against Tennessee last week, they could lose to anybody because they can't play defense.
I watched Kentucky the other night against Vanderbilt, and I'm asking myself as I'm watching, has Kentucky improved enough on the defensive end to be national title kind of stuff? And look, my reference is Vanderbilt,
could.
and I've seen Vanderbilt struggle to score a lot this year. Vanderbilt had a pretty good offensive night for them. For about 30 minutes. They led for most of the first half. They were getting decent shots. Vanderbilt is a very poor shooting team, a poor offensive team. And Kentucky was cold early, and then they shot their way past Vanderbilt. Like they're an unbelievable shooting team, Kentucky. Like they're one of the top shooting teams in the country, top 5. They're incredible from the 3-point line, and they just out-bombed Vanderbilt, who is not going to out-bomb anybody. They're just not good shooters. So I'm thinking if I'm Kentucky and I'm watching them, they should completely stifle Vanderbilt in their home gym. And they didn't really do it. So I still don't know about Kentucky defensively. That's still my question.
I think they are improved than what we saw at the beginning of the season.
Now, maybe they're just coasting against
isn't-
Vanderbilt because it's Vanderbilt. They're not going to get up for Vanderbilt. They beat them by 40 or whatever here. It was not competitive.
Yeah.
So maybe they got a little surprised that wasn't their top stuff, but I still say I have questions about Kentucky's defense. It is better, but is it national title kind of better?
Okay, now didn't Kentucky, that last game, they had a few players out versus UT, right? I think there were a few players out. Yeah.
They had a couple injuries.
So this is going to be a different UT team, a Kentucky team. Now they're going to have everybody's back and healthy for the most part. So this may be a different outcome. This may look a little different because now they have their guys that they missed in the first meeting, and then again, it may not change the outcome. I don't know, but that first outcome, UT did. They had command of that game, I believe. Throughout it all, I don't think there was a moment where I thought UT was going to lose this game, but now fast forward, this is a healthier Kentucky team. How do they look this go around versus UT?
That's going to be, I think, the ultimate
I think
test.
this is a great showcase for Kentucky to
How
show
improved
everybody
are
how
you?
much better you are on the road against a team that we know has very few weaknesses. It is a tremendous defensive team.
A tremendous defensive team. How
And a
much
team
better
that
is
carved
this
you
Kentucky
up on your home court. Carved them up. So this is going to be worth watching tomorrow, no question.
It's going to be a great game, and it sets up such an entertaining SEC tournament. I think that this is going to be the most exciting SEC tournament that we've had in quite some time. That I look at the top 6 of Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Auburn, South Carolina, and I'll throw Florida in there as well. I think any of those 6 teams have the makings of being an SEC tournament champion. Like any of those teams could beat anyone on any given night.
Auburn's sitting there at number 6 in the Ken Pom. Like they're as we know, when they're at home, they're probably a little different than neutral or on the road. But number 6 is number 6.
They are 6th in net rankings as well. Kind of silently. But I think when we talk about trust, like I trust Tennessee. I don't trust Kentucky or Alabama as much as I would at Tennessee. I trust an Auburn team. I trust South Carolina because those are teams that can play defense. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's get into your phones on this coming up next. We've got a lot of reaction on the Vols basketball. Vols in Kentucky face off tomorrow at
Food City Center?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thompson Bowling. I'm just going to call it that.
Yeah.
We'll also keep you updated with the latest in the NHL trade deadline. 36 minutes until the NHL trade deadline. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
Is there a read for
Happy Friday, everyone. Hey, listen. Last night, big win by the Nashville Predators. And as I told you yesterday, if you were going to be betting on that game or any other game, you need to do it with our partner, Zen Sports, which I'm excited to tell you about. Their introductory promotion available to all new customers in Tennessee is the No Danger First Wager. When you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you will receive up to $1,000. No Danger First Wager. When you place your first bet on Zen Sports, you will be reimbursed for the amount of your bet if it loses up to $1,000. Plus, Zen Sports has launched a new VIP program for the premier bettors of Tennessee. If you think you may qualify or might qualify, then listen up. The VIP program is by invite only. So, if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, please check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. No other sportsbook will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and bigger and better action than Zen Sports. So what are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports, where betting just got better. Remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase for broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. 30 minutes until the NHL trade deadline. Awfully quiet for 1:30 p.m. on the day of the NHL trade deadline. Still no news on an Alexander Carrier contract.
Is there going to be one more wave, or is the hay in the barn? I don't know.
Is it going to be 1:55 when Elliot Friedman's phone explodes?
It does happen. Like I would like to know exactly what time it was when Philip Forsberg was traded for Martin Erat, because that's still maybe the greatest trade the Predators have ever made. They've made some good trades, but Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat, who staunchly told David Poile repeatedly, and David Poile tried to talk him out of it. He said, "I want to be traded." Mm-hmm. And he was like, all right. So last minute, Washington wanted the one more veteran piece, and Erat, for all of his strengths and weaknesses, was a good, solid, productive player for a long time. Washington wanted that one more guy. And they gave up Philip Forsberg to get him.
The Preds won that one.
That was the last minute.
Yeah.
So you never know what will happen in the final few minutes when it's, okay, I got it. This is it. Am I fishing or cutting bait?
Nothing from Elliott in the last 25 minutes.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Now, a lot of the big ones hit last night, right?
Yeah.
With Jake Gensel was probably the number one guy everybody was targeting, Anthony Duclair, and then the ones that happened during our show yesterday. So the last 2 days have been a lot of the names we've been hearing for weeks and months.
Trade.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're talking Tennessee Vols. I say, hey, if the Vols beat Kentucky tomorrow, I don't care what they do in the tournament. Make them a 1 seed. We'll get into your thoughts on that. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I have a hunch of who this is on the line, but we'll see. Joe in Nolensville is on the line. What's up, Joe?
Hey, this is Joe from Nolensville.
I said at the break,
why does Joe in Nolensville got to yell?
I said, I think this is Joe Rexroad. I said, I'm pretty sure Joe lives in Nolensville. And I asked Nick, I said, is this Joe Rexroad? Nick was like, I don't know. And
but why does Joe in Nolensville? Why does Joe in Nolensville got to yell?
Because Joe knows good college basketball talk when he hears it. He wants a part of it. That's good. I like that.
I said I defer to Joe. If he says that, I defer to Joe.
I thought it was Joe Lenardi at first. I was like, Joe Lenardi? Whoa.
So what's going on?
I prefer Joe Rexroad. I prefer Rexroad over Lenardi.
Joe, Roxroad is your name.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry for the yelling. I mean, as we say in Nolensville, Friday is for nights. So I just want to throw that out there. But I just want to get in on this because Caroline gave me crap yesterday for because I do listen to the show, and there was something I hadn't heard.
Is this just your way of proving to me that you do in fact listen to our show?
Yes, it is.
I mean, that's part of it.
That is suspect.
Part of it. I know, but also, so I do this discussion. I love this discussion, but also, like, I always get frustrated. I'm not frustrated with you guys, but like some of the discussion around like these things, like the conference tournament, for example. Okay, so I did they used to do these like bring media in and do these, and like we'd all pretend we're ADs and we'd team up. So like 9 years ago in Indy, I did this, and my teammates were Jason Anderson, who was like Stillman's old radio buddy from Louisville, and Mike Tirico, and they were both blown away by my brilliance, of course. But
I'm sure they were.
Yeah, but
isn't everyone?
So I learned a lot, and one of the things is like win the conference tournament. Like, it means nothing. Where did you place in league standings? It means that, right? It's just what are your games that you've won? What's your, so in other words, like if Kentucky were to win the SEC tournament, but it was a bunch of upsets and they played nobody and they won nothing of value, it means nothing, right?
Yeah,
right. But D-Mase made that point.
Yeah. But also, I want to amend what I said, because I said no chance of Kentucky getting a 2. I would say if Kentucky wins at Knoxville tomorrow and then beats Tennessee again next week, and then you throw in, like a win over Bama or whatever, maybe they could jump to. I think they're basically slotted in as a 4 right now. So I just wanted to amend that. And I agree with Willie. I do think smart people in that room do still take into account what is the team right at this moment. But I wish it was more formally. It used to be last 10, and now it's not formally. And that is one thing I don't like. But another thing to keep in mind, and the net is better than RPI, but it's not perfect, I agree. But they do, they look at all the metrics. They look at Ken Palm. They look at Evan Mia. They look at KPI, I think, should be the predominant metric, but they use it still. So, like, the net, I do think has too much weight, and I don't like how, like, basically once your net is set in, like, January, it doesn't move that much. I think that's problematic, but there is a lot more to it.
Okay,
I just wanted to say a lot of stuff.
Joe, this is why I was so shocked last year when Vanderbilt wasn't even in the next 4 out. They weren't really, because all of those things you just said would have made a great case for Vanderbilt, which I made daily. You guys know I was going nuts last year trying to say, why isn't anybody seeing this? And I was comparing them to other teams that made the tournament that didn't have the same stuff going. So that leads me to believe that they're looking so much more at the net than they used to.
No, that's fair, and I agree. And, the number one question that's supposed to be asked in that room, it's over and over again, hammered into your head. Can this team win games in this tournament? And by that, it's very subjective, obviously. And yes, the eyeball test does and should matter. And you talk about every single thing. This team had lost this guy for this month. I mean, everything's talked about. I mean, you have hours in there. You're talking about. So I was stunned too, because Vanderbilt, the way they were playing, they absolutely could have made a run, I think, in that tournament. And I agree, they were way too. And I like, and Stackhouse said it, and I agree. Like, the net, too much was put into it, and like, you got to learn, and you have to adjust to that if you're a coach, if you're a program. But I think that did really illustrate that they need to pivot a little bit in that room.
Okay, Joe. So Tennessee wins tomorrow. They beat Kentucky at home. Are they locked in as a 1 seed? And if they lose, what do they need to do in the tournament to be a 1 seed?
I think if they win tomorrow, they're awfully close to a lock. I mean, again, you're basically comparing them against Arizona right now, right? I don't think any of the other twos have enough opportunity. Now, Carolina does have a road game at Duke. So, do you win that? Do they get to play Duke again? Like, that's the whole thing. The ACC is really weak, but Duke is valuable. So if North Carolina gets 2 wins over Duke in the next week, okay, let's talk. But I think for the most part, Tennessee's a lock if they win tomorrow. If they lose tomorrow, as you said, Caroline, I mean, this stretch here has improved their resume so much, and it's so impressive to do it back-to-back and 2 of them on the road.
Yeah.
I think if they lose, I don't think they have to win. And that's the thing, like, win the tournament, that's the problem too. Sunday almost never matters. That's why all these conference tournaments should end Saturday. Saturday matters. Whatever you do in your conference tournaments, if you get a big, valuable win, that can help you.
So
what it has helped teams.
So what if UT doesn't win their tournament, but Arizona does?
Yeah, but see, here's the problem with Arizona. The Pac-12 is trash.
It's weak.
They don't have value. They don't have wins that help them. That Washington State, if they play them and beat them,
but their quad 1 wins are better than UT's. And they got the same quad 2 wins. I mean, UT's 5-1 at this point, and Arizona's 6-2.
But I think that there's value in Tennessee playing more quad 1 games than Arizona.
Yeah,
right. And I like also when you say quad 1, and Joe, I'd be interested to see what you think about this statement. Sometimes you got to look at the quad 1 and read them and say, okay, because this quad 1 win may not be, in your mind, nearly as valuable as another team would say, that's a quad 1, beating so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like, so you got to look at each one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Arizona definitely had a better non-league performance than Tennessee, but it's just Tennessee just has so much more opportunity in the SEC. So their resume is pretty, I think, a pretty clear cut above Arizona. Arizona just doesn't have a lot of opportunity. If Tennessee loses tomorrow, and I think if they win, like, win the first game and then win the semis, I think it's a lot. Because, again, Sunday, the only way Sunday, like, they basically get the bracket all ready to go, and then it's like if you have to move something, you do, like an auto bid or something. But, yeah, like quad 1 wins. So, for example, and I do like this about the net, like the loss to South Carolina for Tennessee at home was a quad 2 loss. The win at South Carolina is a quad 1 win because it's home road, right? But you're right. You have to look deeper, and they do. They look deeper. I think it's not fair to Arizona that the Pac-12 is as bad as it is before it goes poof. But it is. It's like Arizona and Washington State are the only teams that are going to make the tournament.
I got a zinger for you, Joe, on the other tournament. With Vanderbilt losing last night to Florida in the women's tournament, it looks like they're right on the bubble. I'm holding my breath. They have not made the tournament in 10 years. Vanderbilt's overall athletic program needs this bad.
Yeah,
They made it
yeah.
27 of 29 years. So my entire life as a student they made the tournament every year. It was just a matter of, are they going to get past the Sweet 16? They were so solid. But they've been in this black hole. Shea Ralph is trying to bring them out of there. They're moving in the right direction. But I saw that score. I was like, oh. Are they on the bubble? Are they going to make it?
I mean, it's a great. To me, I mean, they're right there. Like, they are absolutely in that last pool of teams. If they do, I think they're in a plan. But whatever, you're in the NCAA tournament. It's all about bid fees now, right? I mean, it's all about, like, Green Bay. I know is what's like. They need to win their conference tournament because they easily could get an at-large if they don't. So then you lose a bid. So it's all about, like, the mid-major bid fees not happening, and then I think, but it is going to be a sweaty selection Sunday.
I'll be sweating. I'll be sweating when I watch that.
It's
definitely.
a great tournament in Greenville.
And if you don't like Shea Ralph and what you're doing, it's on you. Like you love her
Done a great
enthusiasm and
job.
stuff, and they're going to be better next year, I think. But this would be a nice feather in the cap. They need it.
Thank you, Joe, in
I think if they
Nolensville.
would have won, sorry, I think they would have won last night. It would have been a lot.
I agree.
Thank you
That
for
was-
indulging.
Thank you,
Joe
Joe in
from
Nolensville.
Love you guys.
Thank you, Joe in Nolensville. Appreciate you.
Gonna have to use a different alias.
Exactly.
Hey, Joe, thanks for listening.
That's right. You're welcome.
All we had to do was say Jim from Nolensville. We would never have known.
Dustin Texan says Joe from Nolensville sounds like this grumpy guy that I know.
Man.
So, look, I will say this. I have eaten my words on an Olympic level because I guaranteed that Rick Barnes would not make it out of the Sweet 16. Now I'm the one banging on the table like some sort of Vol Homer for Tennessee to get the 1 seed. I will say this. If Rick Barnes does indeed not get past the Sweet 16, never, ever again, ever in my life am I going to let Rick Barnes change my mind about what he can do in the tournament. Never. Because I'm already giving them the benefit of the doubt this year. I will bite my tongue and swallow my words, and I will totally say that I was wrong. But if in fact I was right, I'm never, ever going to believe in Rick Barnes in the month of March ever again. And I will guarantee that. I promise you that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't fool me again.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that is sort of the question that all UT fans have to have. Is okay. This team is doing really well. They may get a number 1 seed. They deserve a number 1 seed. But will they make it to the Sweet 16? Will they make it to the Elite 8?
I don't think.
Will it be a disappointment?
If they get bounced in the
I
Sweet
said they had to
16,
make
that's
at
a
least the Final
disappointment.
Four. I did say the Final Four yesterday. They have to at least make the Final Four.
I'm with you, D-Mase.
And if they don't, I'm not sure. The question should be, if they don't make the Final Four, say if they get put out in Elite 8, that's the furthest they go. UT fans, is that a disappointment to y'all?
Out in the Elite 8?
Yeah, if they're out in the Elite 8, is that a disappointment to UT fans?
I think it would be a mixed bag. I think it would be a disappointment. But like getting to the Elite 8 is no slouch.
No, it's not.
But this team can win a national championship. And there are a lot of teams that can win national championships that get bounced a lot earlier than the Elite 8. But I would say that you need to make the Final Four. But let's say in the Elite 8, if you lose if by somehow the way that the bracket falls, you lose a really close game against UConn or Houston or Purdue, some of these really, really good teams, then it would be hard to say that, well, that for sure is a disappointment. I think it's also the manner in which they lose, if they do lose before the Final Four.
Bad.
If it looks bad and you just get whooped by a team that you shouldn't get whooped by, that's different. But I would say right now, not knowing how the bracket is going to fall, not knowing how they get bounced, if they do in fact get bounced, I would say right now that anything short of a Final Four is going to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, you might just be right, but you never know how UT fans think.
No news.
No more news?
No news. We're 15
got
minutes away from the
15 minutes.
deadline.
A minor one.
No news.
but Predator fans will know this name for all his years in Minnesota, but he's been playing in Arizona. So Arizona is in their normal, let's save a mill here, save a mill there. They're out of it. Matt Dumba gets traded to Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay gets another veteran defenseman as they continue to load up. Somehow Tampa Bay still had a couple of draft picks in the next, I guess it was a 5th-round pick or something.
How do they still have draft picks?
These
Like the
teams,
St. Louis Rams.
These teams are exhausting.
St. Louis Rams. LA Rams. Excuse me.
They're exhausting all the resources. Same thing with Colorado. Same with Vegas. Even Edmonton. Like, I don't know how they have anything to trade, but that is happening.
It's like Vegas with the cap.
Mm-hmm.
How do they have cap space?
I don't know how they're doing it. Well, I know why they. Yeah,
but
Mark Stone.
I don't like it.
I don't like the rule. We'll have to talk to Elliot about this when the smoke clears from all these trades next week. I'm going to ask him: is it time to? I guess it's got to be collectively bargained, so you're stuck with it for a while. But that rule has got too many loopholes.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we will take it to the bank coming up next and keep you updated with the last 15 minutes while the NHL trade window is still open. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
comes the money.
And you can take that to the bank.
Here comes the money.
It's now time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose. Less worry, more living. F&M Bank. Visit one of their 20 locations throughout Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky or online at myfmbank.com. So quickly before we take it to the bank, 10 minutes until the trade deadline. No news on an Alexander Carrier extension, so that could mean one of a few things. He stays, plays out the rest of the season on that contract, and then he either walks in free agency or the Predators continue contract extension talks throughout the rest of the season and into the summer. Nothing on Lankinen either, so I would expect Lankinen sticks around as well. Nothing on Tyson Barrie. As Willie said, you hold on to him for a depth piece if you can't find anybody that wants to take him, because I think at this point the Predators would take anything for Tyson Barrie.
Yeah.
So a little update from now until the trade deadline. 9 minutes until the trade deadline. Let's take it to the bank. Nick, how'd we do last week?
Not a great week all around, actually. It was pretty rough. Carolina had the Vols to lose Vols to lose to Bama. That did not happen.
My Vol fan father was not very pleased with that choice.
The other one you have here is LSU to win and Jordan Wright to score over 20 points. Half of that happened.
15.
So I gave you a 2, Caroline. It's a little stiff of a number, but a 2.
I'll take
As
2.
for Willie, I listened to it while I was out there. He said 0 or 10. Vandy to beat LSU, and 0 happened, Willie. Sorry about that. Let's see what else we have. D-Mase had a lot of things to happen. Let's see. Philip Forsberg to score versus the Avalanche. That did not happen. He had an assist, but not a goal. Caitlin Clark to have over 30 points. That was a gimme. She had 39. Let's see. Ohio State to beat Iowa. That did not happen. And Michigan State to beat Purdue. That did not happen as well. So, D-Mase, I gave you a 2 as well. That's a little soft number. As for myself, since I was out in Las Vegas for the rugby event, I went very rugby heavy. The Brisbane Broncos to beat the Sydney Roosters. That did not happen, unfortunately. But Reese Walsh, who is the poster boy of the NRL, did get a try. So that is ka-ching. The other one I had was D-Mace. Please, I need you to answer this question honestly. Did you try any hash brown?
No, I didn't. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about it.
Listen, D-Mace, every single Friday, I'm going to put that on my ticket to the bank. I am.
D-Mace is trying to sabotage you.
I'll lose points on purpose.
Okay, I need to find me. What is the good place that sell hash brown casserole?
Cracker Barrel.
Any Southern food that just you can smell the grease from the interstate.
Monell's has good hash brown casserole too.
He said you can smell the grease from the interstate.
That's when you know that's when you know it's good. All right, who'd like to go first this week?
Go ahead, Caroline.
All right, I'm gonna stick in the SEC women's tournament. LSU plays Auburn. South Carolina plays Texas A&M. I'm gonna say LSU's Angel Reese and South Carolina's Camila Cardozo, each with a double-double in their games today in the third round of the SEC women's basketball tournament.
That's the only one you have?
If we got time, I'll bring it around back to me.
For me, Kentucky will beat UT this weekend. And then the Nashville Predators will upseed the Kings and take their position. And move out of that first wild card spot into an actual playoff spot.
Ooh, spicy.
This weekend.
Interesting.
I
Willie,
like it.
Willie has the Vols to win against Kentucky by 5 or more points, and Dillingham to outscore Dalton Connect.
Ooh.
So, which is pretty interesting. And as for myself, to finish it all out, I'm going to go rugby heavy again. I'm going to go with the Brisbane Broncos to just get back to it. It'll play in 2 weeks, but to win their next game. And then I'm going to go, this is an odd name, but Josh Suali'i to score a try. So yeah.
Ooh. I don't even know what scoring a try means, but
it's
I like
like a
it.
touchdown in the NFL.
Okay.
I will say you both need to check it out. It's fun.
A try.
All right.
Gotcha.
All
And
right.
also, Philip Forsberg will have a goal this weekend.
All right, I'm going to take to the bank the Tennessee-Kentucky game this weekend as well. I'm going to say that both Reed Shepherd and Dalton Connect have fewer than 25 points.
Okay. Well, with that, go ahead, Caroline.
Well, that was my last ticket to the bank.
I know. The show's over. Though,
Okay,
right?
but that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back Monday at 11 a.m., 5 minutes until the NHL trade deadline, and still no news. Stillman and Company's up next. Barry Trotz will join the show this afternoon as well.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a wonderful weekend. Peace.